the technical terms that I spell out, so you guys can later on go on Google and search out and get a proper understanding. Hope that's okay. Is that okay? Type yes or no.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So given, let me just get rid of this. Clear. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you have actually brought something online? People who did buy something online, just say me or yes on the chat.
Yes, we have.
Okay. So there's a surprising number of people since this COVID-19 situation. A lot of people are forced to buy online. And to my surprise, the people I expected that would have bought something online earlier, to my surprise, I found out that they have never bought anything online. So it's quite a discovery to me, actually. So what I'm saying is basically, if you can't buy products and services online in 21st century, you're not. I mean, you don't belong in this century. So the people first, at minimum, should know how to buy online paying using their debit card, credit card, or any other payment method that is there. Bank transfer does not count. So if in terms of government of Sri Lanka also considered, I would suggest that if they could launch an online, or if they could launch a 5-minute video on every channel out there saying this is how you buy online by using an example product on an example website, then that will alleviate the fear of people buying online, and that will ease the operations for the government services as well. It's just a suggestion. So but I haven't seen that done anywhere. So if we do that, I mean the congestion and the traffic and the queues waiting out, people, hundreds of people waiting outside pharmacies, supermarkets, can be minimized. So just a suggestion. So if we have that infrastructure, currently there are about somewhere between 500 to 1 million people who are willing to buy online in Sri Lanka using a debit card or a credit card. So we need to get that number way up, because we have an internet population of close to 8 million, somewhere between 7 to 8 million. So like 1/7, 1/8 of the population is actually buying online, are ready to buy online. So we need to get that number up. So in this lecture, I'm going to consider, so this is basically, some of you may know, this is the new product development life cycle. So if you come up with a new product or a service, this is the life cycle most of you have to go through. So there can be other steps here, maybe it's 9 steps. So I'm going to talk about the 7 stages depicted here. And from these 7 stages, I'm going to pick out certain steps. I'm going to omit some because it is not in the scope of this particular lecture. So the idea generation is not in the scope of this lecture. Idea screening is not that, is also not in the scope of this lecture. And so what I'm going to talk about is actually concept development and testing, market strategy, business analysis, testing, and commercialization. So these steps actually includes what I'm going to talk about. It wraps the e-commerce and the digital marketing arena really well. So we'll go one by one to these steps. Again, as I told you, this is a large subject, so I can only cover a small portion of it. So I think my efforts, I have done my best to cover that as far as possible. So concept development and testing. So when you have a new business idea, or when you have a product, you have to first come up with a concept, right? So in order for a concept to appear, you have to have one of the following scenarios. Either you are producing a solution to a problem, or you see a new opportunity that is not there now currently, but it will come up in the future. So you are going to be prepared for that. And you might be responding to a threat from a competitor or a different type of market forces. So you might be responding to a threat. And there can be certain things, certain concepts that are done purely for the research value or research and development. Maybe if we consider pharmaceuticals, if we consider pure and applied research, so that kind of goes into that particular category. And some of those research actually end up as a successful commercial product. So we have seen that over the years. And whatever you do, whatever the concept that arises from these particular scenarios, you are going to have to test it out, right? You can't just go ahead, spend 1 million, 2 million, 10 million rupees and go to the market with, okay, I have this product, everybody buy. Nobody's going to buy, right? Because you have to test the market first. So that's where the minimum viable product comes in. So the minimum viable product is a product. It's actually a bare bones product. It's a prototype of what you are going to do. And with the minimum effort and minimum investment, you are going to test it out to the market, right? So with that, you can actually see if the product is going to work or not. So I'm sure you are clear about the solution to a problem, new opportunity. Likewise, for example, if you take the COVID thing itself, it's actually, in a way, it's a threat. In a way, it's a new opportunity. In a way, we are providing solutions to a problem. We have seen ventilators built in Sri Lanka that never before seen. We have seen good quality ICU beds built in Sri Lanka as a solution to a problem. And there's a new opportunity. For me, example, this is actually a new opportunity. As much as it is a very saddening situation for the rest of the world, there are new opportunities for companies. The best example here, I'm going to give you 10 seconds. What is the company that has that has grown more than 1000% in this particular period? We all know the company. Just put it into the chat box if you can. Exactly. So the very platform that we are using to do this webinar is that company, Zoom. So that's a new opportunity. I mean, they were in the market, right? Everybody was in the market. So they had the opportunity to scale as the requirement grows. And the software is quite simple compared to the other solutions. And given that, and also they were then targeted by hackers and attackers. So there are a lot of problems like that also. But generally speaking, they have found this particular scenario as a new opportunity and they have thrived. The founder has become a billionaire. He was in the millionaires list. Now he's in the billionaires list. That's like in a couple of weeks' time. So I was talking about the minimal viable product. So just keep that in mind, minimum viable product. Okay. So now we are going into the e-commerce business models. So now we have a minimum viable product. So what is the model that this product belongs to? So this product can be a B2B product. So one of the best known examples for B2B business model in e-commerce is, we all know, it's Alibaba. Everybody talks about Alibaba. A company like Alibaba, for example, is providing services to another business, another trading partner to sell their products. So likewise, we can also take banking systems, insurance systems, where two companies can join their data as well as employee data, maybe financial data, and then they do a business transaction on top of that data that can be done, that can be considered not just data like physical products, even that can be considered as a B2B transaction, B2B business. And there's B2C, which is the most common, right? So if we go to an e-commerce website in Sri Lanka, we go to a supermarket website or whatever, that kind of product retail market website, we go buy a product, we get it delivered to the home. So that is B2C, we all know that. So what is C2C? Give me a good example on the chat where you understand a business as a C2C business. Can anyone think of a business where it's C2C? Okay. Uber. Okay. Uber is kind of, oh yeah, we can call Uber a C2C business because the Uber company takes a commission, but the actual service is provided by the consumer to the consumer.
Sanjay, I can't hear you. I think you have muted.
Okay, sorry, where did I go muted?
Sure.
In the B2C or C2C?
C2C, I guess.
Okay, C2C. So yes, Uber can be considered as C2C because the service is provided by a consumer to a consumer, and the Uber company takes a commission out of it. So likewise, eBay auctioning is a good example of C2C. And dropshipping in certain instances can be C2C. Now there are things like C2B. So consumer to business. Consumer actually sells products and services to a business. Give me a good example on that. Can anybody think of an example for C2B? Exactly. Good one. Good one. Osrin, you are here, no? All right. Freelancing sites like Fiverr. The best example, or we all know, is Fiverr, Upwork, stuff like that, where we can sell our services to any corporates, any businesses, or other consumers. So that is a good example of C2B. So I have given 2 links on this slide, which I'm going to share later on with you via the chat, where you can read more about these business models, and there are examples on how to go about each and every one of them. So make sure to read though. I will put them in the chat later on after the lecture. And then I ask you to remember the minimum viable product. So we know the models. Our product or service is going to put in, it's going to get categorized into one of those models. And we have the minimum viable product. So how do, we have the map on the minimum viable product. So these are the ways that I have depicted on how to do a minimum viable product. Since this is e-commerce, all you have to do is try to find a way, try to find a platform to sell your product to a consumer. So the easiest way you can do this is via Google Forms, WhatsApp, or FB pages. So we have seen a lot of pages putting up FB pages, and then they advertise their product, get the inquiry through the inbox, do an offline transaction, and deliver the product. And we have seen that on WhatsApp as well. In China also, this is very much automated through WeChat, where they have the automated money transferring option inside the chat itself. So it's a complete e-commerce transaction inside the app itself. But here in Sri Lanka, we have to do the offline payments up to until now. So Google Forms is another way of collecting customer data and then approaching them one by one later on. And then we can use free trial software to test out our idea. So in terms of e-learning, which I am into, I used Zoom as well as some other few softwares a couple of years ago as a free trial to test out my online learning skills. So that is an example of using free trial software. Also, there are a lot of free trial software for different purposes. You can even, there are software for creating graphics, creating videos. If you are a videographer, you can use free trial software and then test out your abilities and use a paid software to go to market. Likewise, you can do a lot of things. And also there are software where it is allowed to track your inventory. Like there are even ERP softwares that you can track your inventory, sell products, and after a month or so you have to pay and buy the software. Like that, there are a lot of free stuff. So you can test out your MVP there. And also, during this COVID-19 in Sri Lanka, there were like hundreds, literally hundreds of platforms coming up to support e-commerce merchants, right? If you have a grocery store and now you can't get the customers, but you have to reach the customers and get the orders, how you do that? You have to go for an e-commerce store. But e-commerce stores were there, right, from before, but people weren't using them because of various reasons. Either you have to pay after a certain while, either you don't have the necessary support, and most important, can we mute the mics, Chadika? Just keep my mic open.
Yes, I will mute all. You can unmute.
Okay.
After that. Yes, Sanjay, you can unmute.
Okay, you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So so suddenly we have seen a lot of websites popping up in Sri Lanka where they are willing to support our merchants, our grocery owners, to have their own small shop free of charge, and they are also providing customer support. So here I have listed a few. One is Shop Here, one is VShop, one is Order Online, and there are many others, right? So you have seen hundreds of ads going on Facebook. Free e-commerce shop, you can start with us selling. Likewise, each of them are providing a different level of service. You have to figure out which one's best. But you can actually test your minimum viable product. If you are selling masks, for example, you can test out selling masks on free of charge on one of these platforms, and it's quite easy for you to get into business. And then comes selling product on an existing marketplace. So we have a lot of existing marketplaces like Takas, Wow, Daraz, eBay, Amazon, dropshipping, right? Dropshipping, forget dropshipping for now, focus on the rest. So we have those marketplaces already in Sri Lanka where you can list your product and start selling. But all of this has a learning curve, as well as you need to have a basic idea of how to manage a business, not an e-commerce business. If you have the basic idea of how to manage the business, that's the first thing you are going to have. Then you can get into the technical stuff by reading, coming to lectures like this, and maybe watching YouTube videos. And there's a good resource in Sri Lanka, free of charge, to support this on Facebook as a group, which is called Online Entrepreneurs Club Sri Lanka, OECSL. Just search it on Facebook, and maybe you can get in and see what's going on there. It's kind of like the central point for all these e-commerce activities in Sri Lanka. I mean, in the community scale. Okay, now let's move on. So when you have the minimum viable product and you cannot use any of these solutions, and you have a little bit of a technical knowledge and a team with you, you are welcome to go for an open source platform. So when you go for an open source platform, the downside is that obviously you need to know the technical skills, and you need to understand the supply chain, the e-commerce supply chain, from the supplier to the consumer and the after sales. So all that process must be carried out by you. It's 100% on your own control. The control is yours, but you need to know how to handle it. If not, you are going to fail. But the previous stuff I mentioned, previous free platforms, is taking away some of that pain to their platform, and you can focus on actually supplying the product and delivering the product, and then enjoy the benefits, and at the end of the month, enjoy your profit. So by the way, I don't think that they will remain free forever, but for now it's free. So if you're going for open source platforms, you have to contact a web developer or at least a web designer, in the sense like to set up one of these platforms. Or you have to have your knowledge yourself. It's very easy though. So WooCommerce is based on WordPress. If you know how to do a WordPress blog, you can do the WooCommerce plugin there and start the business. Magento is a separate large-scale community as well as enterprise edition e-commerce application. Likewise, Xcart and PrestaShops, and there are many others free of charge where you can download. Have your own hosting and set up your own shop. But the thing is, you need to know how to configure the shop, how to attach a payment gateway, how to communicate with a let's say the delivery person or delivery company, and how to handle orders, how to talk to customers. So that entire spectrum of skills you need to have, or your team needs to have, in order to do this. So that's that. It's free of charge. You will incur some fees, obviously, overheads, like for example server overheads, like that. But compared to a paid solution, this is the starting point if you want to go 100% your own control and for customizability. And then there are paid platform options which take most of those headache out from you, and you are left with delivering, handling your customers, on focusing your business. We have a chat. Is WooCommerce secure? Okay, it's not that WooCommerce is secure. How you implement is the problem. I'm going to answer this question since it is directly related to WooCommerce. So WooCommerce is, by essence, it's a community software, right? So everybody can see what's going on. Everybody can download and install. What happens is, if I get WooCommerce version 1 and install it in my website, and 1 month later they release WooCommerce version 2, and I don't intend to update it, I am using the existing WooCommerce 1. After a certain while, people find several loopholes or several bugs in the system, version 1. So what they're going to do is they are going to report to WooCommerce saying, okay, we have been using WooCommerce for a while, and we have seen these bugs. These are possible entry points for a hacker. Please fix them. So the WooCommerce team actually goes in and fix them, and they release a bulletin out saying we have fixed these bugs on this particular version 1. So I have never bothered to update from version 1 to version 2, right? So what happens is, with that, WooCommerce team releases version 1.5 as a security patch. So I ignore that also. I am only in version 1. So what happens is, the hackers get the bulletin directly from WooCommerce saying, okay, version 1 sites have these particular vulnerabilities. And they're going to, instantly what they do is they scan the internet, or scan websites who are having version 1, not version 1.5. So suddenly I am having version 1. I have all those listed bugs and vulnerabilities. So I am attacked. So that's the most common reason that people are getting hacked. So in order to mitigate that, all you have to do is have the plugins as well as the main WooCommerce thing updated, and also follow the basic rules of password protection. Like you don't have a 6-letter password. You should go for a 10-letter password with a combination of letters and other symbols. Likewise, you are not going to say mysite.com/wp-admin as your admin URL. You are going to change it to something else so other people cannot guess it. Like that, there are a lot of security stuff that you can do. So coming back to paid platforms, all these headaches are actually taken by that paid platform and automated, or in that platform they have handled it in a way. So we don't have to worry about all that. The only thing we have to do is we have to focus on doing the business correct, getting the customer satisfaction. That's what we have to focus on. So these are two platforms. Shopify.com is a world-renowned one. In Sri Lanka, we have ecommerce.lk and many others there are. So you can check these out. So if you use a paid platform, you can focus on providing the best service to the customer. But the downside here is that you don't have 100% control. You can't do whatever you want in these platforms. You cannot customize them. You have to go by their rules. So in a nutshell, so we have discussed how to come up with a concept, how to do the MVP, and how to implement the MVP. I have given you several options to implement the MVP. In e-commerce, this is so in a nutshell. So what I have presented is what is called a tag cloud, where the terms of e-commerce are visible here, right? So these are the terms that come with e-commerce. So I have covered few of them, and the rest you can actually search and go ahead and study. So let's move on to the next section of our thing, the digital marketing aspect. So we have the product, we have the MVP set up. So we do the market analysis. We haven't spent thousands or millions of rupees so far. We are going to test the market with our product or with our e-commerce store. We can either sell a product through an existing e-commerce store like Takas, Daras or whatever, or we can have our own e-commerce store to sell our own product, or we can have an e-commerce store to let other people sell on our store. So all these are possibilities. So whatever you do, you have to do a market analysis. So assuming that because of the scope of this particular lecture, so I told you that I am going to skip few steps. So 1 and 2 I have skipped. That's why I said preliminary analysis is already done. So it is done. That is not in the scope of this particular lecture. So we do a limited campaign now. So we are going to do a limited marketing campaign for the product. First, this is not a digital marketing campaign or anything else. We are going to test. We are going to ask our friends and family to log in or buy the product, try the product out, right? If you're having an e-commerce store, we are asking our friends to go log into the store, maybe buy the product and try the product and let us know the feedback about the product as well as the checkout experience, as well as the e-commerce experience. We need to get them from our friends. So get some honest friends, because there are some friends who, they are good. Just because they don't want to hurt your feelings, they are not going to tell you the exact truth about the experience. So those friends are okay. But I prefer going to people with, who can tell something to your face, right? If this is not good, it's not good. So those people will stop wasting your time and help you to actually grow. So use social media to a certain extent in your personal profiles, maybe a page, company page, to do a limited marketing on your product and services to try the product out. And this is where it gets important. Now you have to use the analytics. So the base analytics tool we use is Google Analytics. Everybody does. And there's another tool which I use for a great extent that helps me to understand how the consumer or the customer behaves in my web properties or mobile properties, whether I have a mobile app or an e-commerce website. People come to my website and they do certain stuff, like they try to buy a product on my website. So if I can see how they actually behave in my website, I can actually optimize my experience. So this is really important. For example, we are doing a website thinking that the user would come to our website, go to the categories, search a product, buy the product, and go out of the website after checking out. That's the ideal behavior, right? But to your surprise, even once you are launched, you see 1,000 visitors coming in, not a single sale, right? Why? So in order to find that out, you have to use the analytics. You can either use Google Analytics to see which pages the people are leaving the site on. Like, for example, they land on home page, they go to a certain page. After that, you don't see any traffic. That means that page has a problem. So you can identify that page from Google Analytics. And exactly what is happening on that page, that you can actually view real time or near real time through a software, through a service like Mouseflow. So this Mouseflow is giving out free, like 500 or so recordings, where they record everything users do on your site, except for their passwords and their privacy data. They record everything you do on their sites, and they give you the recording so you can see what they have done. So recently I made a really interesting discovery where I have this elearning.lk, which is a learning management system where I sell online courses. So what happens is so when I boosted a campaign which is for a language course, Hindi language course. And I boosted a campaign for a few days, and I see only few people bought, and it's not as much as expected. Sales weren't as much as I expected. So I installed Mouseflow and tried to figure out what they were actually doing in the course page. To my surprise, it's not actually surprise. Surprise is coming after this one. I already knew that the 90% of the users are mobile based, right? If I push an ad on Facebook, don't think it will land on people's laptops. No, 90% of them will come from the mobile. So your mobile experience has to be near perfect. So I see people logging in from their mobile, logging into my application, that is also fine. Going to the course page, they try to buy, but the problem is before they buy, they have to buy, they can check out free lessons, right? I have given, there are about 30 lessons in the course. I have given 3 lessons free. So these free lessons they can watch, right? Free of charge, they can watch. What happens is when they try to watch, when they try to click the, when they try to touch that link, the lesson is actually opened. Yes, it's working. It's actually opened, but it is opened at the bottom of the page. So since he's viewing it in mobile, he have to scroll down to see that particular opened lesson. But nobody is getting the idea on the mobile that you have to scroll down because it doesn't show a scroll bar, right? So you are touching, and nothing gets open, they leave the page. So I saw that from Mouseflow. What I did was I took the same open lesson and put it on top of the listings, on top of the lesson listings. So when you touch the lesson, the video player comes up on top now, as compared to previous, which is it was below. So now people can actually watch the sample lesson, and then they would go on to buy. So I did that and did a boost, and it was working, right? Like 10-15 people bought. So that's what I mean by testing out, using analytics to test out. And also this can be applied to another level where if you are not confident about your mobile experience, you can just target your advertising on Facebook even to people who use desktops, right? So even though if you just generally push it out to 100 people, 90% will watch on mobile. But if you just target desktops only, whatever advertising you do will land on desktops only or laptops only. So they will be so you are kind of feeling comfortable because you know how to control that experience, or the other vice versa. If you want to ignore desktop and just target mobile, that also you can do on these social media platforms when it comes to advertising management. So that's the next step. So I'm basically asking you to do a simple test with your friends and family, see what they do on your site, and then improve. And then identify the ideal customer. So your business can have several different customers. For me, in my experience, since I'm doing a learning product, my ideal customer, if I am selling courses to age from grade 1 to grade 7, 8, up to grade, even up to 10. Okay, let's say grade 1 to grade 10. All these courses, my ideal customer is not the student, it's the parents. So so let's take a parent, for example. So if we say, what would be the age range of a parent where they have a kid that is going to school in grade 1 to grade 10? So I would say a grade 10 student is 15 years old. So let's say the median marrying age of a Sri Lankan family is 27, for example, and maybe 25. So let's say that. So 25 plus 15 is 40. So leave it or take it, I will have another 5 years. So generally, I should target somewhere between 25 to 45. That's my parents. Those are my parents. And on Facebook, you can also do a filtering where if you have a child, you can target that also. So that is my customer base. So I have identified to a certain extent who my customers are in general terms, and then I push it out. And then I can actually, and when they come into the site, I use the same analytics, same behavioral analysis, and then figure out who my ideal customer is. Sometimes I have to call the customer in person and ask whether my experience is okay. Have you had a good time buying stuff, like that? And then likewise improve, use analytics, repeat the process, and also do a competitor analysis on site, see what they are up to also. So business strategy is something that I am not going to talk about here in detail because it is out of my scope, but I'm going to talk about the marketing strategy, which is part of the business strategy, right? So I'm going to talk about the marketing plan now. For the business strategy part, now we have who are our customers, the people are coming at a limited scale. Now we can analyze how should the product go, how should the product develop, and then have a long-term plan. So I'm going to cover digital marketing in a single slide. It's really impossible to cover it, but I have to because of the time constraints. So digital marketing. So this falls under the new product development lifecycle, market entry, and commercialization. So digital marketing in a nutshell, this is the implementation. I'm not talking about marketing strategies. There are marketing strategies and marketing theory, right? So you can take, I mean, the 7 Ps. Likewise, there are a lot of marketing strategies out there, marketing models even. So I'm not going to talk about those. I'm just going to talk about the implementation. So the Facebook, you can obviously create Facebook pages. You can have Facebook groups, or you can take membership of Facebook groups. You can boost ads on your page based on the demographics of your customers. You can do live videos promoting your product. You can do short videos promoting your product. For example, if you are selling masks, think of different kind of 1-2 minute videos, short videos you can put out these days, just for masks, right? I have seen a lot in other countries as well. And then the influencers are people who are already popular on Facebook for different reasons, and we can pay them and use them to market our product. So we see that we see a lot of that on YouTube, where all these people like Ratta, Janai Priyai, and like this, they come and market a product, right? So those are influencers. So Instagram is the same, although it doesn't necessarily have something called pages and groups and boosting, because it's kind of like it's more into your personal branding as well as influencer marketing. Instagram, you can use that for that, and also you can actually boost Facebook ads into Instagram. And then comes YouTube, where you can have YouTube channel, and where you can do periodic videos, maybe use an YouTube or Instagram or Facebook influencer to get traffic into your YouTube channel, and then get users subscribed to your channel. So if you are selling a cooking product, or if you are selling something like that, you can actually start a cooking channel, right? So if you are selling vegetables, or if you are selling a certain type of meat, you can have a cooking channel where the product used is always your product, and you are going to teach people free on how to use different recipes, so they subscribe and learn. At the meantime, you can also market your product. I mean, if you buy the product within the next 5 minutes using this link, you will get a 10% discount. Go to this particular website or Facebook page or whatever, pay it up, and then buy. Like that you can do. And there's TikTok, obviously nowadays very popular. But the thing is, there are different market segments, right? You can't target TikTok. I mean, you cannot target the same advertisement for TikTok and LinkedIn. It's totally different demographics. So likewise, you have to select and then approach each platform. So we simply don't have time to go through all of that. And then you can do paid Google search and publisher network advertising. So you can pay Google. So somebody search for something like, for example, let's say no, not a ventilator. Okay, we'll take the same example, masks, right? So surgical masks. So they search. So we can pay Google on the first 2 listings. We can have our listing, our paid listing, where they can buy the mask, come into our website. So notice that how important all these optimizations are, because we are actually paying Google to publish our ad to a person searching for that particular product. When they see our ad, they will click on it, come to our website, and they still have to go through our entire process of checking out and then buy it. This is a very long process where you have to optimize it to the max. Otherwise, you will lose the customer. You paid up Google in dollars. They came to your site. Because your site is not good, they have left. You lost the client, as well as you lost the revenue, or you lost your money because you have advertised for nothing. So it's a very complex task that you have to go through. And then, of course, if there are blogging, you can do blogging. This can be done in Sinhala or English or whatever language, and you can share that in your Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube. You can actually do the blog article, read the content in the YouTube as a video. You can do a blog article. You can read the same content on YouTube as a video, right? So there you have a video, you have an Instagram post, you have Facebook content as well. So all these platforms are covered using the same blog article. And then you can obviously market events. So we are in an event like that, even though this is not for commercial purposes. Obviously, you can have your own webinar to market your product or service. Yeah, it's free of charge for the customer. So you give something of value to them, as well as on the side, you can market your product. And there are things called podcasts. You can check them out. And then comes SEO. So SEO and LinkedIn, I put it on the same line for a reason, because if you have a proper LinkedIn profile, then most of your SEO is basically done. So if you can go to my LinkedIn profile as an example, there are a lot of people who have done better profiles than me. But for starters, you can check out my LinkedIn profile. Just I don't need to put the link even. Just Google Sanjay Alitigala, and the first thing that comes up is LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile. That's why I said, if you have proper LinkedIn profile for your company as well as yourself, you don't actually have to do search engine optimization for your website, because those two will act as the traffic generating links for your website. But there's a separate thing called search engine optimization, where obviously you have to improve or optimize your website, hire a professional maybe, and then check against certain tools whether your site is up to date and according to Google guidelines, whether you are up there or not. If you are not, you have to update it accordingly using the SEO guidelines provided by Google and many other companies. So that all these can be done online with free checks, and maybe you can hire a expert for just a day or two and then get a report done. And then there's something new called performance marketing, which is a deep subject. So all these things that I have talked about are coming to the performance marketing paradigm. It's already here. So the next few years, we won't be talking about these as separate like this. We may talk about is under a one umbrella term called performance marketing. So now we have the business, we have the marketing channel going on. We have people are coming, they try to buy. Maybe you have to have a customer service department, which is what I am experiencing these days, because my e-learning product has taken off, and a lot of students and a lot of teachers are actually using it to teach their online classrooms. So what happens is, now I am setting up my customer service department so they can handle the inquiries. Roughly, we are getting about 1,000 calls a day. So I am also getting about 300 to 400 WhatsApp requests, WhatsApp messages, which I have to fulfill. Amidst all of that, I am here teaching you guys. So that is there. So customer service is the main thing. Whatever the product you have, doesn't matter how good technically it is. If you don't have the customer service, you are done. And your team and its composition. So your team is really important. Your team needs to have administrators, programmers, marketeers, salespeople, right? HR people. I mean, these are actually roles, not people, sorry. These are actually roles. One person can act several roles. So your team needs to have that composition. If you are a single person job, then you have to outsource most of these to people that you can also find online, do a couple of searches. And then relationship with the suppliers. So if you are drop shipping, basically you need to have a really good relationship with your suppliers. So drop shipping is basically you are charging the customer, you advertise a product which is not yours. You are not keeping inventory. You are not keeping it in your warehouse. No, you are just advertising someone else's product. You get the money from the client. You keep a margin and pay the supplier. Supplier needs to make sure that it gets delivered on time under your branding. Or maybe it's not branded at all. Or you can white label it to your branding. So that's the basic explanation of dropshipping, which is used by a lot of Sri Lankans now, and they are having a lot of success with it. So you have to have good relationship, not just with your suppliers, customers, your team, your employees, and you also have to have financial discipline, right? So especially in these times where the future is uncertain. So if you have good financial discipline, you will know to use your financials sparingly, so you can sustain it for a long time to come. And obviously use common sense, right? You have to use common sense. If you don't have the common sense, I mean, you can't live your life, let alone conduct a business. So I think I have covered, all right, 45 minutes, I have covered the entire thing. So we have 15 minutes for questions. So I hope I did justice to your request, Chadika.
Yes, of course.
So if anybody's having questions, I'm here to answer. So I'm watching the chat.
I think, yes, the chat box there. I saw some questions.
So if I miss the questions, just put it again. Can we have the presentation slides by email? Chadika, how are you going to go about that?
Yeah, we can share. If you can send it to me, I should be able to share.
I'll mail you.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question? I'm Hasita here.
Okay.
Just in regards to open source platforms and paid platforms like Shopify. Why would, I mean, the pros and the cons of the two of them? Why would someone want to, like when they're changing, like say initially they go with a paid platform, and then they are going to change to an open source platform. I mean, what kind of troubles are there? Are there troubles? Can you keep the same, links, etc., for existing customers?
Well, links in the sense, links of links
as in,
of
like
customers.
your address, like whether it's a website address or where a customer has to be directed to.
Okay, Shopify paid version allows you to have your own domain, where you can, when you switch, you can use the same domain since it is yours, obviously, to have your own website. So the link won't change. But the thing is, Shopify URLs, then you have to rewrite it, some of them. There's a technique called URL rewriting in SEO we talk about. But generally, it's not a problem of switching, but the problem arises when the experience is different, right? The Shopify experience is a certain fixed experience, standardized experience now, right? Everybody uses Shopify now, they know how to use Shopify. But I mean, that kind of templates people are familiar with. But if your site is a bit complex than that, then you will start losing sales. So you have to have the experience matched, usability matched. And the payment gateways, of course, when you break away from Shopify and maybe go select a Sri Lankan payment gateway, and if you had a lot of foreign customers, those people will obviously not pay for the Sri Lankan gateway because they don't trust the Sri Lankan gateway.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Okay. What is the tool we can see customers experience? That is called Mouseflow. Mouseflow. So I'm going to put Mouseflow. It's on the chat. I'm going to put that. So there's a website, you can have a free trial there. And also, I'm going to put those two links. This is one where you can read more about e-commerce business models. This is the other one. Can you explain a bit more about Fiverr marketing? Yeah, I was on Fiverr for 2 years from 2012 to 2013, end of 2013. And my Fiverr revenue at the time alone was about 60,000 rupees per month. I did it as part-time. So when I got married, actually, most of my expenses were covered from my Fiverr revenue. But Fiverr since then had changed a lot. So now I see there are thousands of sellers for the same service, same gig. There are thousands of sellers. So it's really hard for a newcomer to start earning money through Fiverr just by listing on Fiverr. So what you have to do is, you have to have your own audience built somehow using other social media tools, maybe writing articles. For example, the 2 articles I just shared with you are written by normal people like you, right? So I can go to medium.com tomorrow, have my own profile and write an article. About what? About e-commerce in general or digital marketing in general. I share my knowledge, and at the very end, I'm going to say, if you want to try out my product or get my services, this is my Fiverr profile, right? So first I have to establish that I am an authority on the subject. Then at the very end, I can market my services, where that will act as a traffic generation source for your Fiverr profile, where they order stuff. Once you get few orders, of course, on Fiverr, and if you do a complete good delivery, the Fiverr algorithm will suggest to more people. Will suggest you for more people, where then you can have the ball rolling. Otherwise, it's really hard. What you think about starting digital marketing business in Sri Lanka? Performance marketing. Can we get? You can get the slides. Yes. Yeah, you can. I mean, digital marketing business in Sri Lanka. The thing is, there are a lot of people trying to do this, right? Some people with knowledge, some people without knowledge. So it's really hard to distinguish between who's a good guy and who's the bad guy. So this is as it is for us, it is the same as to the client. So most clients in Sri Lanka, I have seen, are coming to us and going to different places where they are already disappointed. With the results they got from a previous supplier, and they don't trust the industry anymore. That is a very sad situation, and that is there. So my recommendation is, of course, have a website, do all the things I just mentioned, and do more, and maybe try to market to a different country, right? So maybe on your articles, if you write an article in Medium, maybe to include few keywords about a different country or a different place, or maybe you just do a Facebook campaign or something else to a different country. So like that, you can try it out. You can try it out. Or simply, if you're on LinkedIn, that's the easiest way to do this. If you're on LinkedIn, And if you can spend at least 1 hour a day for about 6 months, and you can handle your profile really professionally and approach people, I mean, not in a way to sell your product, but in a way to help them out, as well as establishing yourself as an authority on the subject. LinkedIn will give you the leads, so you can actually go and reach the other countries. So it's a really good way of reaching other countries is LinkedIn. I can't tell you exactly which way you want to do. I'm doing it my way. You have to find out yours. Is there any specific platforms to use Fiverr marketing examples? I'm not clear about the question. Is if you are going to have a marketing gig on Fiverr, then check out what other people have done, what other top 5 sellers are doing on Fiverr. Maybe try to copy them and differentiate a bit. That's a strategy that you can use. Thank you, Lalit Jaisingh. What do you think about the bell curve of this current purchasing pattern? Personally, I cannot wait to buy goods on my own. Okay, so this is a really good question. So all this particular hype about e-commerce and online buying and all that came with COVID-19, right? So it, in a way, I would believe that the 80-20 rule applies here. So when the country goes back to normal, 80% of the people will go to their own ways, old ways. They will go back to their old ways of lifestyle. 20% will prefer the new change and they will stick to the new change. But even that 80% are going back to their normal lifestyle with this knowledge, with this new knowledge that they have an alternative. So that's a really good plus sign for the future where we can actually improve our products and services. And also I have to add something to that as well. If we can have that population mentality that people are unafraid of buying online, if we can have that, a lot of our startups will also be successful. Because currently we are seeing a 90% failure rate of our startup businesses, especially in the tech field, tech startups, right? So since I'm in the tech field, I can speak for that. So the reason being, there are not too many early adapters in Sri Lanka, right? A lot of people are waiting someone else to buy and recommend the product. So you have to be an early adapter. What to do to have to be an early adapter? You have to have money that you can spend on for recreation purpose. I mean, you have to have additional income, additional money you can spend on whatever you like. So a lot of people doesn't have that possibility. So they need to also the other one is they are afraid of buying online. So if we can solve at least one of the two, in this case buying online, if we can alleviate that fear, then the startups will actually have a good time to roll out their product and come to a mature state. I hope that will happen soon. In Sri Lanka, what is the best place? I cannot actually go and endorse a particular gateway here, but there are a lot of good gateways. And compared to the gateways provided by the banks, we have a really good gateway called Pay Here, which I also use from my friend Danica. So it's a good service. Although now since they are getting a lot of traffic these days, they are also having a few glitches. But so far, that's a really flexible and a feature-rich platform for Sri Lankans to do their online business. And there are a lot of other stuff, like there are things like Freeme, Genie, iPay, UPay, JustPay, like that. There are a lot of stuff, Direct Pay, so you can use. What are the upcoming marketing ideas with this current situation? It's really hard to answer that question in a time like this. We are having only a few minutes to go. But generally, so basically, people will actually move on to more online kind of marketing stuff. So that's actually going to be the trend for the next few months at least. Also, I also noticed few people are scared to share their card details. I personally explain to my customers, how can we educate them? Do a video. That's the best way to educate them. Do a video where you do a screencast like this and showing each step of the way. How can they pay using a credit card or a debit card, and what they should not do, and what are the information that you keep with yourself. So as a seller, you don't actually keep their credit card, right? Nothing is kept right with you. It's actually on the bank's end, and everything is secured by the SSL right nowadays. So educate about all that, and then most of those customers will actually not fall into victim of that fear, and they will actually start buying. This is my personal experience. I've been trying it all last week. Did a video on them, screencast on how to actually pay online, sent it to them, and they're okay. What is the name again of the gateway? We have few gateways. So pay here is what I mentioned. Please repeat the recommend. Okay. Can you give some instruction how to? Okay. So Chadika, there's a problem called. Can you give some instruction on how to headed to start a startup? So that's a separate series of lectures, not just one.
Right. Okay.
What is the easiest online paying option way to client in our website? So if you are selling to foreign clients, PayPal. But the thing is, PayPal doesn't allow you to get money directly into Sri Lanka. So you have to have an address in another country or registered business in another country. And there are online services that provides that also. So you have to pay a small amount to get an address on Singapore and US or some other country where it's legitimate, where you can have a PayPal address where you can get the money to a bank account abroad and then to Sri Lanka. Please, can we get the slides? Well summarized lecture. Thank you. Okay, that's what I can see. The questions. Anything else? I think we can finish it off now, Sadika. I think there's a questions.
If there is any further questions,
we can wait. We have a few minutes more.
Yeah, they can even email, and we can spend even few minutes. On behalf of the ICT Skills Council and Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission, I take this opportunity to thank Sanjay for conducting a very valuable session, very informative and very productive. And thank you so much for spending your time to share your knowledge with this audience. And also there is a series of webinars that we organize for this month. You will be notified to your email and through our social media. So I kindly request everybody to keep in touch with the ICT Skills Council. And thank you very much for the participation. We got 70+ participation for the session today. I take this opportunity to thank everyone. And if you can drop us a small feedback about the session, that will be really helpful. Please try to do that.
Okay, I think the feedback is coming in.
Yes.
Just a quick note, if you want to contact me or anything, just search me on Google, Sanjay Lutigala, and approach through my LinkedIn profile. Okay, then shall we wrap it up?
Yes.
Hope the session was useful. Thank you very much, Sadika, for the invitation.
Thank you, Sanjay.
And thank you guys for the really good.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you so much. Sandika, thanks again. Thanks.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.